What's a company secret you can now share? Story 1. Health insurance, dude. When you file a claim, it is often denied because they're counting on you not escalating it. Once you do, your case goes to a medical management group, which ought to be called the We Don't Want to Pay group. Keep escalating and involve your doctor. Fight for the insurance you paid for. Can confirm. Busted my knee and was on crutches because I couldn't walk on it. Was denied because they felt I wasn't in enough pain because I didn't require a painkiller prescription. Doctor went back and forth, and I was on crutches 2 months before they finally relented and I could get my surgery. Here's a question. Why is the doctor responsible for fighting with the patient's insurance company? We don't get paid for it. We don't work for the insurance company. We don't control pricing of anything really, including our own fees. That's all the insurance companies and hospital corporations. And most importantly, the patients chose a specific insurance product. Why is the doctor being inserted in here? I'm feeling the common sense in this one from everyone except the health insurance companies. For reference, this is in the US, in case you couldn't guess. My least favorite part is when the insurance has a doctor or nurse review the claim and they still turn it down. Does that person practice medicine anymore? Story 2. Mortgage industry here. We're like cops. Only answer the question asked. Do not provide additional information to be helpful. It could screw you over. Can I please get your most recent pay stub, please? Sure, here's the last year. Also, I was off work from this time to this time and was technically let go and rehired, so the year to date starts over. Cool, now you haven't been employed for a full 6-month time period and I have to deny you. I was working a loan recently that had been in processing for 444 days. New construction, material delays, getting a final verification of employment, co-borrower tells me her employer is pushing back on corrections because he doesn't like that she's leaving and has accepted another position. Recorded line. I couldn't act like I didn't hear it. Today, I learned a need to please can be detrimental to your housing situation as well as your relationships. Story 3. I worked at L'Oreal. The cosmetics from L'Oreal and Lancome are practically the same, but Lancome costs like $20 more. My ex worked for another huge brand that made lotions. They put the exact same lotion into bottles with 3 brands at different price points. People attach a value to the price, so if they only sold it at the lowest price point, some people would think it's cheap and they would lose sales. If they only sold it at the highest price point, they would be pricing it too high for other individuals and lose sales. My boyfriend worked at a factory that made scented oils for perfumes and colognes. Some of the colognes were designer like Gucci and used the same oils that are used in the cheap ones. I knew it! It's all status symbol related. Such a crock. Story 4. I worked at an Olive Garden in the mid-90s while I was in college. Back then, they had the all-you-can-eat soup, salad, and breadsticks lunch special for like $4.25 plus tax. Working lunch shift was awful. You would get probably 2 or 3 tables, and there was a 99% chance that all of your tables were 2 ladies getting this lunch special with water during their lunch break. After about a year, several of our best servers were mysteriously fired. It turns out they were running a scam where they used the same receipt repeatedly when these ladies paid for their meal with cash. Since we could get those 3 items ourselves from the back without ringing them into the system, these servers were just pocketing the cash for the entire meal. So instead of making like $5 to $8 in tips during a lunch shift like the rest of us dumb schmucks, they would make an extra $20 or so by stealing from the company. Server at Earl's in downtown Vancouver did something similar. Servers used to have the ability to move items to other bills, seats, or tables if they rang that item to the wrong place. A server moved a $3 pop repeatedly every time someone paid cash. By the time she was caught after many years, she had stolen about $15K apparently. I was a manager at McDonald's and was told by the owner that the #1 money-making item was soda. That's why the cashier will always ask if you want a soda. Fountain soda is very cheap to provide. Anywhere I've worked in food service, pop was free to workers. It makes sense that it wouldn't be noticed if that much was missing, especially with free refills for customers. I'm not condoning theft, of course. I would never do that. Story 5. I used to work in college admissions. Rich donors, athletes, and other VIPs have lower admission criteria. They still have minimums, but they're super easy to reach, even for a selective university. In the case of the university I worked for, children of general church authorities also got this. I know multiple people that got into Ivy schools with SAT scores around 1200 because they were elite athletes. Or not elite, but better than the caliber of athlete that the school currently has on their team. Myself and a few high school teammates got into better schools than we should have by settling for teams that we were better than. One of them went to Harvard with low 90s and average SATs. College athletics are a huge moneymaker, especially because they do not pay the players, and the schools reap the entire benefit from ticket sales, merchandise, and any tournament winnings. Story 6. Diet Sprite and Sprite Zero were the exact same thing. They didn't change the recipe one bit. They just changed the name and design. As someone currently working for Coca-Cola in England, Coke Zero was introduced to target the male audience as Diet Coke was seen as too girly. Older Diet Coke adverts support this, and some men would shy away from buying it. They are completely different recipes though, and the company now leans more towards Coke Zero being as close tasting to Coke without the sugar and calories rather than the male/female reasoning. This makes sense, because diet soda is 0 calories. So what would the change be to make it zero soda? However, the one time I thought about it years ago, I was under the impression that there was a change of artificial sweetener between them too, and this was a different soda than Sprite. But knowing that businesses are free to make marketing changes, they don't need to actually have a new product to make a new product. It makes even more sense. What businesses are and how they do things should be more commonly understood among the general public. It's an important part of the human world that most interact with frequently. I was going to call the companies sexist, but really they're responding to what their customers are buying. If customers preferred to buy something called blue formula or whatever, even if it wasn't blue, then the companies would call it that so they would get more sales. Story 7. This Mormon church likes to talk about how much charity they do, but it's always tied to some form of missionary work or proselytizing. Particularly in Utah, they would secure housing, furniture, food, etc. to Iraqi refugees, and in exchange, these poor people who have had their whole life uprooted would have to be visited by and listen to missionaries drone on and on about the Mormon religion, and having the gall to ask these Muslim refugees if they want to get baptized after a few weeks. I know this because I, non-Mormon, was dating a Mormon girl back then, and I was asked to translate for the Iraqi families. I speak Arabic. Of course I never did. I told them the whole scam and told the Iraqis to act interested so they can keep getting charity. We scammed the scammers basically. LOL. Especially in the LDS church. I happen to know you can ask them for help and they'll give it to you, if they can, without any conditions. But usually once they help you, they'll still want to be your friends and occasionally will invite you to things. Nothing wrong with that though. Every LDS church building in every area of the United States has a yearly stipend to budget out for charity. If they can help, they will, and if they can't provide monetary help, they'll do a food collection from their storehouses. But inviting and sharing their message is like a core belief to them. To them, it is a commandment of God to at least invite people to listen to their message because they believe that everyone is a child of God and deserves to know, but they also believe at their core in freedom of choice and will respect people's right to say no. Spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ, much like other Christian faiths, is extremely important to them. Those Muslims had the choice to say no to the message that they were invited to hear, and the LDS Church would never have made any Muslim homeless or starving for saying no. Their church also heavily advocates for self-sufficiency, so they believe in getting people back on their feet, but expect them to pick themselves up and work hard. If you grow up Christian and never really question missionary work, I can see how this would seem normal, I guess, but adding in some perspective, as a Jew here, proselytizing is strictly banned for us. It's explicitly against Jewish law to seek converts, and is also very offensive if someone does it to us. Doing good works with the motive of converting someone to our religion is unthinkable to us. Conversion to Judaism is allowed, and there is no difference between a convert and someone born into a Jewish family under our law, but we are never ever supposed to seek to convert someone. Not only is it duplicitous to help others with an ulterior motive, but it also seeks to steamroll their culture and beliefs and is a massive overreach into their lives. Our philosophy is that if someone is truly meant to be Jewish, they will seek it out and come to us and want to do the required study and work of their own volition. The concept of missionaries is deeply upsetting to me because of all that, and I think a lot of non-Jews feel the same way even without explicit religious law forbidding it. If someone wants to do charity, they should do charity. No strings or sermons attached. Otherwise, it is not truly charitable. I have never personally been comfortable with the idea of proselytizing. It assumes an I'm right and you're wrong undercurrent that is in no way kind of accepting. Someone told me once that a coexist bumper sticker was blasphemy, and it changed my perception of that person. Story 8. I worked at a comic book store that offered a service where you paid a small premium to send in rare comics to have them graded at CGC. A few months later, we had many customers coming in to check the status of their comics. We contacted the owner to see what was going on, and he would always claim that there was some distribution problem. Fast forward a few months and we found out he was taking customers' graded copies and selling them online while trying to return back issue versions of their original comics. How did this dude think that comic collectors who were sending in comics to be graded wouldn't recognize they weren't receiving their original comic back? I'm sure a few newer to the hobby wouldn't be the wiser. But man, that's what we all said. My friends and I were managers and had absolutely no idea this was happening. It was a smaller town comic shop, and all the customers sending in comics to be graded were good friends of ours. But the plot gets thicker. Turns out his wife was signed for the business, so who we thought was the owner wasn't really the owner. We called her and explained what was happening. She was in tears. She came to the shop to meet the wronged customers, and she took rated comics from the owner's collection and let the customers pick out comics equal to the value of their graded comics in return for the mishap. Fast forward a few months, she closed the store, gave us our paychecks, and even some I'm sorry money. It turns out the guy was doing all kinds of other shady stuff. She divorced him, and I'm like 99% sure he went to jail for fraud. He's also banned from CGC and all licensed big comic cons, so don't worry, he lost that battle. You don't expect a little mom and pop shop to be so blatantly stealing. That's quite the small town scandal. I'm glad the real owner was able to make it as right as she could. Story 9. I worked for a major hotel chain in housekeeping for over 10 years. The number of suicides and people who die naturally in their rooms is a lot higher than you'd think. I worked at a huge convention hotel with over 1,000 rooms, and it happened quite often. Unless it was a pretty gnarly mess, it would just get cleaned like normal, and the next guest had no idea. Casinos too. People would leave their children in their car to gamble on hot days. No need to say more. People would kill themselves in the parking lot, commit murder-suicide in their rooms after losing, and one time a maintenance worker left the door propped open to the stairwell that led to the roof, and a guy jumped off. He landed on the wedding chapel. It's a food court now. Same with cruise ships. They actually have several morgue coolers on the ship. One of the big ones has 20 drawers. I'm so grateful I don't have a story for this, but also a bit freaked out. Story 10. At a local deli/grocery store I worked at, everyone raved about how good their mac and cheese is, and it always sold really quick when I worked in the deli. It's even labeled on the menu as store's famous mac and cheese. It's literally just Stouffer's. We didn't even add anything to it. At least they used a good mac and cheese. A bar near me claims to have homemade mac and cheese on the kids menu. I overheard the manager telling an employee to pick up cases of Kraft from Costco. Recently, a local, I've never worked there, but this story was in the local paper, bakery, whose name rhymes with Nookie Factory, was embarrassed by a photo of boxes of cookie mix, Dunkin's or something like that, sitting on the table next to their ovens. Yeah, store's famous cookie recipe indeed. When I worked at a Subway a long time ago, the tuna was literally tuna from a big can with a lot of mayo in it. That's it. That's the recipe. Story 11. If you were on live chat with customer care, I could see what you were typing before pressing send. I watched people work through grotesque, racist, sexist statements, fraudulent lies and mistruths, meticulous grammar fixes, and their whole range of emotions in real time before deleting and typing OK. Oh, I did chat support for a while and we had this, but they then removed the feature because being able to anticipate what people were saying made us reply faster, and they'd then complain we were bots and not real people. Efficiency makes some people mad. It's a bit like how the McDonald's staff member can hear you at the drive-thru box even when they're not talking to you. If they are taking ages to come on and ask me what I want, I start singing along to the radio. They normally come on and take my order pretty quickly then. It used to be thought that someone who thought they were always being watched was considered to be paranoid. Not so much anymore. Story 12. Had a friend who worked for a bridal dress company. She would tell me her stories after work. They intentionally will bring back the wrong dress in an attempt to get you to try it on, fall in love, and buy a more expensive wedding dress. They'll walk you through the more expensive sections so you look through dresses out of your budget and want to try them on. They often forget to check if the dress you requested is in stock for the time frame you've requested, again, so that you'll have to pay more for faster shipping or a nicer dress. It's a very predatory business masked by compliments, thinly veiled body shaming, and incredibly underpaid and understaffed stores. Everything about the wedding industry just seems so scummy/scammy, just custom made to prey on women's desires for their big day. Everything marriage or wedding related is a straight up scam. That industry has been scamming for years. One giant overpriced party. I agree with this, from the horribly expensive engagement ring to the ridiculous outfits, bridal parties, crazy cakes, and bank-breaking honeymoons. Some brides get post-wedding blues because after a huge expectation and build-up, it's suddenly all over. Story 13. I don't think it's a bad secret at all, but back in college I delivered pizzas for Papa John's. The store manager must have had an undiagnosed case of OCD or germophobia or something, because every night he would assign someone to do the cleaning duties, mopping floors, double-checking expiration dates, throwing away expired stuff, etc. And every night he would absolutely lose his temper and berate whoever was doing the cleaning. They were going too fast, they weren't cleaning everything, whatever. After that, he'd always take over the cleaning himself. He was amazingly picky about the cleanliness and food quality. Expiration date is in 3 days from now? Fuck that. I'll order more. Throw that shit away. We're not serving it. He would also go out of pocket to buy special cleaning products because that worthless bullshit that corporate wants us to use doesn't get the job done. He also went out of pocket to hire some kind of specialist to clean out the fountain drink dispenser, ice machine, and all of that stuff. The machine needs to always be as close to brand new as possible. One standout moment for me was when he reduced a cashier to tears by hollering, "Would you eat off this floor? No? Then it's not clean enough." He wasn't telling her to eat off the floor. He was just making a point. After we'd closed the store, he'd kick all of us out, lock up behind us, and stay until something like 2 a.m. cleaning the place. You always knew when he closed because you could smell the chemical scent still lingering in the air. The end result of this was the store, the food, the equipment, and the facilities were always in squeaky clean condition. Customers somehow picked up on what a perfectionist the store manager was and bought from us all the time, because there's a lot of peace of mind that goes into knowing your food was cooked by someone willing to throw ingredients away before the expiration date, stay in the store until God knows when cleaning everything, etc. The true irony was how much the boss hated himself because he didn't think he was doing a good enough job to run a clean restaurant with fresh ingredients. It didn't matter how many compliments he got from us customers, or how many service industry veterans said they never worked in a place as obsessive about freshness and cleanliness as his Papa John's store. He was convinced his store was still a filthy barn. Eventually, he got promoted to some kind of higher-level corporate position, district manager, that required him to visit other stores and make sure they were all up to spec. The end result was that a lot of stores in the area all improved seemingly overnight. Just admit you worked for Los Pollos Hermanos. Gus isn't mean and rude to his employees, though. If you missed the reference, it's Breaking Bad, and Gus isn't that great to all of his employees. Spoiler alert. Story 14. Worked at an American Toyota dealership in the body shop for 12 years. We would throw away literally everything regardless of the environmental impact. Car paint, which is nasty stuff by the way, went straight into the dumpster. Radiator fluid, down the drain. I even saw someone put oil down the drain a couple of times, even though we had barrels for it up in the service department. The only thing we saved was old car parts, which the boss then sold to scrapyards and pocketed the money. The painter didn't even wear a mask either. He is around 60 and still kicking despite 30 years of painting without a mask somehow. I painted cars for about 5 years before I started having respiratory effects, despite wearing a mask. To this day, 6 years after leaving the job, if I smell thinner or clear coat, I involuntarily hold my breath. Have to force myself to breathe when this happens. My body says nope. A coworker used to work at a little shop that was in what was essentially a row of oversized storage garages with some plumbing. One did stereos, another did performance parts install, another did painting, and so on, all rented out by different people. The paint guy would flush everything no matter what. The city noticed the paint slugging into their treatment system all the time. Turns out they have sewer snakes with cameras that are at least 1,000 feet long. They kept going from access point to access point from the treatment center all the way back to this guy's paint disposal toilet. Of course, the guy is all like, "I never flushed any paint," as the toilet was all stained up looking just like the inside of the pipes on the way out. Didn't turn out so well for him. You can do crazy stuff on occasion, but if you make a habit of doing it, you might just have a sewer camera poke you as you sit there browsing Reddit. Ah, the EPA should know about this side of the thread. Story 15. I was a prison guard a decade ago, and we installed some facial tracking software into the surveillance cameras. One of the inmates panicked while cleaning the unused solitary confinement cells, which is usually a desirable job. It's easy as fuck and nobody pays attention to you, and he insisted that he be moved out of that job because there was a ghost. The ranking officers decided to check the new cameras, and the security software claimed it saw a face behind the inmate at the same time as he was visibly startled in the camera footage. We're all aware there are mundane reasons why a new facial recognition system would think it saw a ghost, but since the inmate and the security software both thought there was a ghost, it was decided that the inmate should be immediately transferred at no penalty. What happened to the ghost guy inmate? That's crazy. He didn't get hurt or anything, he just heard a ghost come up behind him and say something. He left and asked not to be sent back. Facial recognition registered a face in the air behind him at the time when the camera showed him acting startled, so the lieutenant and the captain watching the video were spooked enough to reassign the worker elsewhere. There were some other details and rumors, like some older inmates who thought they knew who the ghost was. Naturally, a lot of people were skeptical about the situation in general. Still, with at least one superstitious lieutenant and one superstitious inmate, the other ranking officers didn't try to put forward any technical arguments for why the camera might be registering the way it did. The people who saw the footage just wanted to make the situation go away. I would give so much money to find out what the ghost said. Please, someone finance this. Story 16. I'll say it, a place similar in name to Past Face Urgent Care, at least in the region I worked at, banned their front desk from informing customers that they have a credit balance to use toward their services and still required us to charge customers the full price on top of what we already owed them. Some accounts had like $500 of copay that should have been refunded but weren't. I was actually reprimanded for applying the credit balance because despite finance agreeing my method was correct, the regional manager said it was not a good look for the company and hindered her profits. I work in healthcare billing, so I know exactly what you're referring to, and wow, that is shady. Overpayments are an often occurrence because copays can differ so much from plan to plan. I'm refunding at least $2 to $3K a month to patients, if not more. Thanks a lot, Anthem, for being so damn confusing with your copay rules. It's just crazy to me that your previous employer would be that stupid. There are literal records showing the money is owed, and they won't get away with it forever. Healthcare and insurance are disgusting businesses sometimes, taking advantage of sick and desperate people. Isn't that fraud of some sort? My insurance sends me a letter every so often saying that they paid what I was expected to pay for that specific visit, and what number to call if they charged more or less. Again, US health system. It's definitely worth your time to look closely at your reports from your health insurance company, called EOBs, or Explanation of Benefits. How people who can't see and don't have people to assist them are too old to figure this stuff out, or people who can't read are supposed to figure this out is beyond comprehension. Story 17. I was the one who did undercover news stories about Scamp's pet stores and their affiliation with puppy mills. Please don't buy from pet stores, folks. Thank you for doing that. One of my dogs is a puppy mill survivor I got from a mill dog rescue group. It took him about 2 years to play, 5 years to sit on my lap, like 7 years to ask to be picked up. He's my sweet little old man in his always forever home. Can't help but wonder about how many puppies he's fathered. We rescued a tired sweet purebred beagle from a puppy mill. I miss her, but we gave her the best last few years of her life. Her spirit was broken when we got her, so all she wanted was love and attention. There are a few rare times where I look at my life and say, if there's a purpose to all of this, then that was one of those times I was meant to be here. The old lady's name was Maud. Animal rescuers are some of the best people. Adopting an older pet is such a selfless thing to do, and they appreciate it so much. Story 18. I used to work as a receptionist at an upscale salon. While I was there, the salon introduced a new line of products marketed towards men. Up until that point, most of our products were marketed towards women, but the execs saw that we were getting more male customers. Every item in the men's product line was about half the cost of our other products. The men's shampoo was the exact same shampoo the salon had been selling for years, but because they put it in a black package with the word man on it, it was half the price. The owner's explanation was, well, men don't want to pay that much for hair products. For the rest of the time I worked there, every time a woman came up to buy that shampoo, I'd tell her that the men's shampoo was the exact same product for half the price. This is often referred to as the pink tax. Companies will often mark up the price of women's products that are identical to men's, except they are pink. When I grew my hair out 50 centimeters, 20 inches, I started going to an upscale salon. I got scalp massages, proper hair washes, haircuts, oils, and everything in between, which cost me a total of €40, $43. My mom, who has short hair, 5 centimeters, maybe 2 inches, would pay more than twice that for the same treatment at the same place. This is the opposite of the Diet Coke/Coke Zero situation. This is half the price for men for the exact same product and/or service. Therefore, sexist. Story 19. All new clothing and everything you try on is dirty. I've worked in retail for years and it still shocks people, but there's no washing machine or disinfectant sprays or wipes. Nothing. I've opened boxes of new clothes that had white bugs coming out of them. Saw a woman after a workout class come and try clothes on and then just leave, still sweaty from the class. One older lady left dime-sized skin flakes in the clothes she tried on. Not to mention whatever happens when they return the item or what happened in the factory. People are gross. Nothing is clean. Always wash your clothes when you get them home. Had someone steal a new bra and put their dirty bra back on the rack. I threw it out. People have defecated inside fitting rooms. To this day at my house, all new clothes bought are immediately washed. Everyone looks at me and I say the day you work in retail you will understand that humans are far more disgusting than animals. I had an ex-friend that would try on thongs, thong bodysuits, and more. They didn't shower for a few days and worked every night stripping, so you know they were funky. They said there's nothing unhealthy or unsanitary about it, that any germs or bacteria or viruses will die by the time they try it on. I would regularly tell the Victoria's Secret or lingerie department in a large store that my friend had just tried on their stuff without a disposable panty or their own so that it could be damaged out. At one particular Victoria's Secret, they actually banned one of my friends for trying things on because of that. She complained while in store on the phone with customer service, who instructed the manager to essentially damage out any items they were positive customers had tried on bare. As petty revenge, one friend went ahead and grabbed about 20 or 30 pairs and tried them on for a second just so they could get damaged out. I'm going to go find my anti-nausea medicine. Story 20. We sometimes made up letters to the editor. A friend of mine used to work on Off the Record on TSN, sports show in Canada. It always ended with viewer questions from the mailbag. 100% of the questions were made up by the producer on set. I should clarify, this didn't happen on every show ever aired that I know of, but it happened on every show we worked on, which was about 3 seasons. I think it's such a common old trick, and nobody can convince me that it's not what all these mid to low tier influencers do on social media, with their "so many of you have been asking where this item is from, here's the link." Insert a screenshot of a message from a fan, probably their mom or a friend, or "here, I am answering the countless questions you sent me through Q&A," and it's 5 questions, after which they go, "Oops, that's all I have time for today, but keep sending them, I'll answer more tomorrow." This is pretty shifty. The audacity. Story 21. I'm 90% sure a company I worked for was importing product from China, repacking it and selling it as made in the USA, in other words, blending it with the product we did make in the US. Italy is infamous for making clothes most of the way in China. Import it to Italy, slap the labels and maybe the finishing threads on, now it can be tagged as made in Italy. The US may have stricter restrictions than other countries for their made in US shoes. New Balance states something like 70% is done domestically. I work in footwear. Made in versus assembled in the US are different, but still difficult certifications to get. Made in apparently requires even the grass that the leather cows graze on to be be American, with a few very rare exceptions. Interesting to learn about. In other words, cheating. The customer thinks they're getting something made in the US, but the fine print says otherwise. Story 22. I worked for a large construction company, and the sales guys would intentionally omit items from contracts because they received incentives for what would then become a change order. Me, you forgot to include any framing in this contract. Sales weasel. Oh, I guess it's a change order then. I had the opposite happen once. We were expanding our refrigerated storage building and hired an HVAC company to install the refrigeration system. They started doing a bunch of work out of scope and then asked them about it. They told my boss they talked to me and I approved it for time and materials, so no change order needed. I didn't approve anything and they tried to charge us like $500 per man per hour for work we didn't agree to. My boss refused to pay for the work and the guy kept threatening to sue. We had a sales lady for a home we bought who actually said to us, "Hang on, you're changing this and this and that? I'm not submitting it yet because if we do it 3 times, you're charged 3 times. So I'm going to wait for the couple of days. You tell me you need to finalize your ideas." Same person when we went to final sign the initial paperwork, pointing out the lot size is a lot larger than marked on plan. Bad math said. You're right. You're getting a good deal. Sign right here, please. We'd given a deposit, and when we saw the error, needed to point it out for our own consciences. She honored the original deal, got about a third of the lot free. Some people are good. Keeping an eye on the contracts seems the way to go. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story that you would like to share, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.